first thing we're going to do some self-assessments to see, we're going to get your HPP score. It's your high performance potential score. And it's a self-assessment, and it's for you to go back and revisit every 30 days or so to see where you're at, where you feel like your strengths are, what you feel like your weaknesses are, so that we can improve. So we're going to do this quickly. You're just going to self-assess yourselves. I want you to write down these categories as I say them, and then take a second and just go with your gut. A 1 through 10 score next to each of these categories. A 1 meaning you're awful at it and you should just leave now. 10 meaning you're a liar. Got it? All right, so 1 through 10 on each of these categories. We're just going to take a second for each one. Number 1, sleep quality. So not necessarily how long you sleep, but when you're sleeping, how well are you sleeping?
The point of exhaustion count?
Yeah, if you need to go different on the scale, do what you got to do. So sleep quality. All right, number 2, sleep quantity. How many hours? On average, people in our age group should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on your body. So 7 to 9 hours. If you're consistently in 7 to 9 hours on timeline of sleeping, you could be a 10. If you're like me, sometimes I hit it, sometimes I get like 4 hours. Number 3, food quality. Food quality, so the quality of your actual food. So if you're eating meat, but you're eating McDonald's meat, that's bad food quality. If you're eating pasture-raised beef, that's good quality. So the quality of the food that you're eating.
But what if I get McDonald's burger with a Diet Coke?
0, get out.
But it's diet.
It's diet. Number 4, food timing, meaning how good are you at paying attention to when you're eating during the day? If you're deliberately fasting, for example, that's great. Are you sticking with your timelines? Do you have a bad habit of eating at different times each day? So do you wake up and some days you eat breakfast, some days you don't. Sometimes you have dinner at 4, sometimes you eat it at 8. So we want consistency of food timing. Number 5, daily physical activity. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be doing hard workouts every day, but in general, on a day-to-day basis, how are you doing with doing something active? Number 6, your overall stress and anxiety levels. Do you feel, and in this case, a 10 would be sometimes you feel stressed for short periods of time. That would be a 10. We're all going to have that. But are you feeling consistently stressed or anxious when you don't need to be? Or are you finding yourselves in positions where you're always feeling stressed or always anxious because of whether it's external or internal things happening? What's your general level at? 7, the clarity of your purpose. So we were talking about your why earlier. Clarity of your purpose. Do you know why you're doing what you need to be doing, and how clear are you on it right now? Number 8, your daily energy. How do you feel? Forget everything else, just even if you know you're doing all the wrong stuff, maybe it works for your body. How do you actually feel while you're doing everything you do during the day? Number 9, your physical health. Do you have aches and pains all the time? Do you feel nauseous all the time? Do you have headaches all the time? What's your general just level of physical health? How do you feel? And for whatever you do know about your body, how's it going so far?
Is that 10 being the best?
10 being the best, yeah. Number 10, your mental stamina. So throughout the day, when you are focusing on whatever you need to focus on, or not necessarily focus, but your actual energy of your brain, do you feel like it's working at max capacity? A good way to scale this is 1 to 10, how many hours a day do you feel like you're at max capacity of mental stamina? Does that make sense what mental stamina means? Yeah. So if you can do it for 1 hour, you're a 1. If you can do it for 10 hours a day, you're a 10. Number 11, your organization. How organized are you with the actions that you're taking every day? Are you sporadic? Do you wake up and just do whatever comes to your mind? Or are you deliberate and have things organized? Number Number 12, your level of focus. So when you are working, you're doing a task, are you constantly distracted, getting thrown off task? Are you jumping from one thing to another, trying to multitask and failing horribly like I do most of the time? Or are you able to sit and do one thing that you need to do when you need to do it? What's your focus level at? Number 13, your productivity level. Productivity level. And this one's almost more, it's almost less about you as a person, more about what are the systems you've created for yourself. Are you working productively or aren't you? Does anyone need to go back over any of those? Like the numbers? Anyone miss any? 4.
Food time.
Food timing.
Thank you.
So all of these are important things for us to look back on. So what you do is you take your 110 score, you add that up, and so 130 would be a perfect score. A 13, again, you just leave. And this is all it is a gauge, it's a quick gauge for you to look back on every 30 days or so and see how are you feeling, what do you need to work on this month to get better, so that over time we're getting progressively more and more close to that perfect score. We're never going to hit the perfect score, but we want to be leaning in that direction and not getting less potential for high performance every day. Okay, so those are 13 main categories. We're not going to go through all these categories. I just want you to be aware of what they are and where you feel like you're at with them right now, so that when you go home you can start to work on some of these things. Because the theme today being reset, recharge, recommit, we're going to be focusing on just a couple of categories and go deeper into them to work on those. So the first one is sleep. How many of you feel like you sleep well enough? Couple, few, good. How many of you feel like sometimes you sleep well and sometimes it's complete crap? Because that's me. I feel like I do 60% of the time I'm pretty good, but then there's just nights where I stay up too late or whatever. It's a Friday and I go out and it throws off my whole sleep schedule, but generally speaking. So a couple statistics. 35% of adults don't get enough sleep. That's actually better than I thought. I mean, 65% of people adults get enough sleep. And this is talking about the duration, so the amount of sleep, time-wise. 38% of people report falling asleep at their desks, though. So one thing I want to point out, it's a small percentage difference, but the difference between 38% and 35%, meaning even some of those people who are getting long enough sleep aren't getting good enough sleep. So there are different categories. There's long sleep and there's good sleep. And we're going to talk some about that in a second. But poor sleep affects our memory, concentration, mood, immune system, and just general energy levels. So it's important for us to have good sleep. I think I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone's heard that, yeah? We need to sleep well to perform better. So let's look at some ways we can do that. So just to give you a background on sleep, if you're not sure of kind of the ins and outs of what's actually going on in the body. So there are 4 main stages. The first 2 stages are light sleep stages, and then there's a deep sleep, and then a REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And these are kind of just breakdowns, just brief descriptions of what happens in our bodies during each of these phases. So stage 1, it's a light sleep. It's not actually a sleep. It's like when you're kind of dozing off and you're starting to make stuff up in your brain. It's that in-between stage where your body's trying to get there. That's usually a very small section, hopefully, of our sleep. Stage 2 is also a light sleep. That's where the body temperature starts to drop, blood pressure starts to change, and we start actually getting into a real sleep. We usually spend a fair amount of our sleep each night in a lighter sleep stage, and that's totally normal. Stage 3 is deep sleep, and this is where a lot of people don't get enough deep sleep. They kind of hang out in the light sleep and they'll even flicker into REM sleep, but deep sleep can be affected a lot. But that's our most restorative stage. That's where human growth hormone is released. So if you are, especially if you're working out and you're trying to see your results better, that's a lot of the time when your body is actually doing the recovery stage. And so if you're not getting enough deep sleep, your body's not recovering enough. And even if you don't, that's not a goal of yours at all, but you were really active. So today we've been kind of moving around a lot. We just did some yoga stuff. It was kind of restorative, but also it was active. So tonight when we're sleeping, our body is going to rejuvenate a lot of the stuff that we were losing today. If it doesn't, then tomorrow is what gets affected. I think a lot of times what we do with sleep is we kind of think like what's the most I can get away with? Like, how can I sleep the littlest I possibly can to perform at a decent level tomorrow? What I want us to do is start taking a step back and looking at how do I make sure I get exactly the kind of sleep that I need so that I can perform my best tomorrow. 4 more hours, I'm just going to stay up and I'm going to do it. But you're so tired, your brain's not even working, and you're just trying to push through it. And I think I do this a lot, but the better way to do it is actually to go to sleep and then wake up earlier. Because what happens when we wake up earlier is our brain is fresh again. So the speed that we can process things, our mental stress, our mental stamina, our focus are all heightened. So we could get something done in the morning by sleeping. We could get something done in the morning in 2 hours. That might take us 4 hours in there. So starting to look at so we can get 2 hours of sleep. It's still the same amount of time that we went, we're going to stay up, and instead we took those 2 hours to sleep, but we also don't need those 2 hours, so we feel better all day. It's a chain reaction. Sleep is always a chain reaction, so we need to pay attention to it. And then REM sleep is where dreaming occurs. And REM sleep gets messed up with things like alcohol, with caffeine. There are a lot of things that affect our ability to get and stay in REM sleep, and we'll look at those in a second too. So here are some sleep don'ts. These are things you do not want to do if you want better sleep. Number 1 is drink alcohol within 3 hours of bed. So if you have a habit of going home after work and then, or like maybe you go out with friends after work for happy hour or something, and then you come back home and you try to go to sleep right away, and you have a habit of doing that, you're going to notice your overall energy is going to be low and your sleep's going to be bad. And that's because your body is still trying to process all the alcohol in your system. And it slows down your metabolism, it slows down your ability to actually, it slows down a lot of your digestive system because your body prioritizes, what's the word I'm looking for? Where's the nurse in the house? So we have our proteins, our carbs, and our fats, right? And when we have alcohol, what happens is the body, it metabolizes that first. And so it makes everything else kind of be on hold, and that's where we hold a lot of fat. And it also increases our cortisol levels. So drinking alcohol, you can drink alcohol, just stop 3 hours before bed because it gives your body some time to actually work through the alcohol so that you can sleep well. Otherwise, you're going to be up peeing. If you're like me, I do that anyway, or TMI, but God, if I could sleep without doing that, that'd be great. But that's just a rule of thumb, 3 hours before bed. It reduces your REM sleep, and the REM sleep is where we do a lot of the organizing of information that we took in throughout the day, and we process it. So when we lose out on REM sleep, we lose out on a lot of the cognitive enhancers that sleep can cause or help with. Drinking caffeine after 2 p.m. This one's hard for me. Does anyone else have a hard time with that? Like 2 p.m. is pretty rough. Yeah. I feel like I can usually do like 5 or 6 p.m., but 2 p.m. is pretty hard. But I do notice a big difference in my ability to sleep for a long enough period of time, or like not feel jolted awake because it's a stimulant. But stopping at 2 p.m., the greater thing that it does, and why we usually like to drink coffee or caffeine beyond 2 p.m. is because it keeps us stimulated. But caffeine has a half-life. So that means it has a half-life of 8 hours, which means every hour the amount of caffeine in your system will cut in half. And then the next hour it cuts in half, the next hour it cuts in half. But that means there's 8 hours of basically caffeine in your system that your body's reacting to. And so if it's 2 p.m. and you have caffeine until 10 p.m., you're going to have some caffeine in your system that's going to make your sleep hard. What is good about stopping at 2 p.m. is it does make you tired, and that's kind of the point of stopping is it does make you tired. That's why we try to not do that. We try to drink caffeine so that we stay awake, but it throws off our whole sleep cycle. So you want to stop with the caffeine so that your sleep cycle can remain normal. Exercise within 4 hours of bed. Any night owls here that like to work out at night? And one of the ways that our body actually rests is by our body temperature decreasing and our heart rate decreasing. And exercise makes both of those things elevate, so it takes longer to come down. And the longer it takes your body to come down in those two categories, the worse your sleep is. Looking at screens within 1 hour of bed, that's a hard one. Anyone like sit in their bed with their phone? Yeah, it's tough. Or like watching TV. Does anyone here sleep with the TV on? Quit it. Or at minimum, a good trick is just set the timer on your TV. so that after you fall asleep, put it for an hour, and then they'll shut off because the light in the room affects your sleep. And a hack for that is getting those. Have you seen those? They're kind of goofy looking, but they're like glasses that block out the blue light.
Yeah.
So if you get a pair of those, you can kind of do your thing, keep watching TV or whatever before you go to bed, but it helps to block out the blue light, and the blue light decreases melatonin production. So our bodies have this natural cadence, and so we wake up, and then throughout the day, we go throughout our day, and at a certain point in the day, our bodies start to release melatonin, and it's a sleep hormone. And so when we look at blue light, our body kind of processes blue light the same way it looks at sunlight. So it's a trigger to stay awake, it's a trigger for melatonin to go away. So when we're looking at screens, it makes our brain stay awake. That's why we want to avoid looking at screens or wear those goofy glasses. All right, sleep dues. 7 to 9 hours of sleep, non-negotiable. Do whatever you gotta do. Keep it cold. 65 degrees is the recommended temperature for sleep. It's chilly. Does anyone keep it that cold?
I try to.
You try to? You don't let them? I try to keep it. I think we're usually at like 68, which I feel pretty good about. But we also, I feel like this is a side note, but I feel like we have a really light, like the blanket we use is really light, so that's my excuse. But yeah, it's really good though because your body's going through so many temperature changes. It's important to keep it cold. And keep it dark. Anyone sleep with a nightlight? Or sometimes. I like all your answers just like sometimes. Nightlights are okay, but
Moonlight?
huh?
Moonlight?
Moonlight is natural. Moonlight's moonlight. So, and some people recommend doing like total blackout curtains in the entire room, so everything's pitch black. Some people really react well to that, but our bodies, remember like humans used to sleep outside. We're used to sunlight, we're used to stars and moonlight, we're used to a little bit of light, and it doesn't affect our bodies as much as some people say that it does. But keeping it generally dark, and if you have, like our room has literally a window for moonlight to come in from the ceiling. There's not a lot I can do about that, but I can make sure the rest of the room is as dark as I can get it, and that helps. But even keeping a little bit of window open or something is useful for the morning when the sun starts to rise, because that's a natural indicator for our bodies to start to wake up. And then keeping it consistent. This is one I didn't realize how important it was until recently. But if we're trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night, it's actually not as important as the consistency of when we go to sleep and when we wake up. So if you sleep one night from, let's say tonight you go to bed at 10, and you wake up at 6 tomorrow. Great. And then tomorrow you go to bed at midnight, and then you wake up at 8 the next day. Your body the 8 hours are not equivalent. Your body starts to get confused about what it's supposed to be doing. Again, remember we have these biological clocks going on inside of us. So we don't want to be confusing them, and they have a natural cadence they want to follow, which is typically with the sun rising and falling. So by switching up the times of day that we're sleeping, it can affect our sleep long term, our energy long term, more than just going to bed that second night, go to bed at midnight like you did, but get up at 6 again. It's better to lose a little bit of sleep for one night than throw your whole cadence of sleep off. So the hours are important, but more important is keeping consistent when you go to sleep and when you wake up. Meditate or nap for 10 minutes a day. There's some new research that just came out showing, a lot of research used to say 20 minutes was the ample amount of time to take a nap for best results. Now they're saying it's 10 minutes. There were a lot of theories being thrown around a few years ago that was like, and this is true also, but like people eating big lunches and getting tired. That might be true if you're eating a big carby lunch or something, but regardless of what you eat, that's when our bodies start to release little bits of melatonin, just naturally, because it's getting us ready for bed. But it could be 2 p.m., we could have 3 or 4 hours of work left, so we still need to get stuff done. So taking a 10-minute nap can be enough, they say, to rejuvenate your brain to get 2 to 3 hours of work more at max capacity. So it's a quick hack, 10-minute nap. If you can't sleep at work, which I know some people might be frowned upon, you can also meditate for 10 minutes. It gets similar results, just letting your brain shut down and stop a lot of the stimulus. sit in silence, use a meditation app or something, and let your brain kind of shut down and relax. 10 minutes. And be careful of going over that, especially if you take a nap, because there's that same research I was talking about that said 10 minutes rather than 20. They also looked at what happens if you sleep for 30 or what happens if you sleep for 45 minutes. And they said it produces a similar effect to like when you pull an all-nighter in your brain. They call it sleep drunkenness. And so your brain is releasing all these chemicals and your hormones are changing. And so your body has gone into a state of sleep kind of beyond repair, and it takes up to an hour and a half to get out of that. So the one thing you're trying to do is get more energy for the last few hours of the day, but instead you're just trashing yourself. So either 10 minutes or nothing are your better bets for getting more energy through the day. 15 minutes of morning sun. This might work, but it works well for me because I walk, like my path to the office, I have to walk for a while. So I get sun naturally, but if you don't, just try getting up a little bit earlier and stepping out into the sun for 15 minutes. It gives your body the vitamin D that it needs to just wake up your brain and get you ready for the day. And then it helps that biorhythm in our body. It's called your circadian rhythm, and it's our body's natural way of following the rise of the sun and the fall of the sun. And that helps just calibrate everything first thing. Align sleep with your chronotype. Have you guys, who's heard of your sleep chronotype before? A couple of you. So we all have different biorhythms. Yeah, it's really cool. There are a lot of free apps too. Like Sleep Tracker is a good app, and then there's a new company called Aura. They've been around for a few years. I don't know who's heard of them, but it's this ring. Basically has like a microchip built into it, and there are sensors in here. And you wear it, and throughout the day, it'll track your body temperature, it'll track your heart rate, it'll track your activity level, your steps, your calories. And so it's really useful, and it logs it in this app. And it also tracks all these things while you're sleeping, so it can tell you, and I'll show you some graphs in a minute, it's really cool. But it'll tell you like how much REM sleep you got, how much sleep you got in stage 1 or stage 4 of sleep, and let you kind of assess that information and figure out how you can sleep better. And so it's important to track your sleep. At minimum, just track how long you slept. This is going to help you, how long you slept and what time you went to bed, because then you can kind of work off of that. So it's probably kind of hard to see, but these are my sleep scores for the past week. So this one is my average sleep score out of 100 is 72, which is not great, but it's like okay. And then average total sleep is 6 hours, 58 minutes. So I'm just below the 7-hour mark. Personally and honestly, I probably need more like 9, but this is my last week. And what's really interesting is you'll see these dips, right? Like this, so this night I slept about 4 hours. And then I went back up because I was super tired, so I slept like 9. And then I kind of evened out to my natural like 7 to 8. And then it slowly goes down. And then this one I got about, looks like maybe 7 hours, but look at my sleep quality score. It's way down here. Guess what I did this day? Yeah. I drank alcohol this night, and look how that affected, even though I got almost the same amount of sleep as I got up here, a little bit of difference, look at the sleep quality score. So it makes a huge difference. It really affects your sleep, and it's cool to be able to track it and figure these kind of things out. Because now I know if I want to get good sleep, I need to calm down on the alcohol sometimes. And then so it also lets you track your time in bed, which is interesting because you can see how long. I think this one for me is just like a wake-up call. If you ever like wake up and then you sit on your phone for a long time, you're like for like half an hour, like checking Instagram or something. It'll track how long were you actually in bed for and how long did you actually sleep for. So you can see like are you goofing around too much in the mornings and you need to get out of bed. So it's just a good way to track that kind of thing too. This one is REM sleep. So you can see this night again, when I only got about 4 hours of sleep, I only got a little bit of REM sleep. In our bodies, in our sleep, we go through these 90-minute cycles. So these stages of sleep, typically it's a 90-minute cycle. So I had a shot at like 2 of those cycles maybe. And really we want to go for 4. So you can see that it affects, like, that's why it's important to try to get around 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because you can actually make it through these sleep cycles that are doing important things in your body, in your brain. And another note on napping, by the way, if you feel like 10 minutes isn't going to do it for you, do 90, because that's your other way to get your body through an entire sleep cycle. Because what you don't want, and why you don't want to sleep like 40 minutes, is because you're going to wake up in the middle of a deep sleep cycle, and it's going to throw you off. But if you can finish the sleep cycle and sleep about 90 minutes, you're going to feel good. So 10 minutes or 90. Okay, this is my light sleep. So this is my stage 1, stage 2, this red line here. Purple line is my total sleep. So it kind of fell off here, but it's just a good way to track and see, like, what is my body trying to do. Again, with the alcohol, the deep sleep, that one got me. I'm kind of glad I did that because it makes better data. Sleep latency. So this is how long it took me to fall asleep. So usually I'm right in here at like a few minutes. This is like probably 5 to 7 minutes right here, maybe 10 minutes here. And then again, I had alcohol, boom, took me 50 minutes to fall asleep. So it can mess you up. I'm not anti-alcohol, but I might end up being after looking at all this. But just be careful with it and pay attention, like, what do you have going on the next day? Is it worth drinking for, or is it worth having extra caffeine the day before? How do you want to feel the next day is a much better question than how do you want to feel right now. Okay, and this is a closer look at that bad night of sleep that I got. I was in bed for 6.5 hours, and I got like 4.5, 5.5. And then my sleep score is a 53 out of 100. It's really bad. My activity level the day before was a 95, so that makes it even worse. So my activity level is like, I probably went and did a really heavy leg workout or something the day before. So my body really needed the rest. And I drank a bunch of alcohol, didn't get any sleep. My readiness score, which is how ready I am for the day, was a 58 out of 100. So you can start to see when you're tracking these things, just what the impacts are of your actions. So here are a couple sleep resources. There's auraring.com, and so that's this ring I was talking about, if you want to check those out. They're a little bit pricey, but if you can stomach the cost, they're pretty cool to have. And then the other one is the Power of When quiz. So I was talking about sleep chronotypes, and if you want to find out what your chronotype is, it's a free quiz. Just go to powerofwhenquiz.com. There's a whole book behind it, which is a good book. I recommend getting it. I have it on audiobook, and it was helpful. But once you identify what your chronotype is, and it'll kind of give you like an animal to reference. So I'm a bear. And I really wanted to be a lion, but I'm a bear. And I had to admit it. Because they're the lions, they're like, oh, they're always the CEOs, and they're the go-getters. And it's like, I want to be a lion. And then it's like, no, you're a bear, you're average. I was like, great. Wonderful. So take the quiz, try to be honest, and then grab the book. It's really worth reading. And it gives you not only it'll give you specific things of like when is a good time to go to sleep and get up. So for me, my sweet spot is going to bed at 11, waking up around 7. And like when you try it, you'll feel it. You'll feel that it's working for you and your body's working for you instead of against you. It'll also tell you like the best time for you to work out. It'll tell you the best time to eat a big meal. It'll tell you the best time to do pretty much anything. The best time to do your most difficult work during the day, when your brain's going to be the most active, and it's all based on your chronotype. So it's really cool. Okay, let's talk quickly about stress and anxiety. How many people generally feel stressed or anxious? Yeah, me too. So like Nicole was saying, our bodies are created to handle short bursts of stress. We're not created to handle chronic stress. So we want to eliminate that. And I think it's important to note that not all stress is bad stress. Sometimes stress is good. Again, if I'm running from someone and I feel stressed and my senses are heightened, that is a good thing. It's not good when I'm feeling anxious about someone maybe chasing me, and so all my senses shoot up, right? That's not what I want. I don't want to respond to things that haven't even happened yet. So 80% of people report feeling regularly stressed on the job, which is a huge issue. Because when we're stressed, our brains aren't functioning properly and our bodies are shutting down. 50% said they need help managing it, and the other 30% are delusional. So when we are stressed, Nicole mentioned this too, she's just giving me assists all day over there. Our bodies enter a fight or flight mentality, so it's our parasympathetic nervous system hasn't been hasn't been activated. Like we sometimes our body, like that's what we need to get back down to a non-stress state. And sometimes our bodies will just stay at this elevated state all day, and it causes our cortisol levels to rise, which affects our weight, it affects our quality of sleep, and then it also can affect our serotonin and dopamine levels. So when we're kind of in this anxious state all the time, it can cause us to go into bouts of depression. It can have a lot of issues, and it really affects the quality of work we're able to do because we can't focus on the things we need to focus on with all these things going on in the body, trying to react to something that may not even be real. So stress and anxiety have similar effects, but they're different. And the way that I like to kind of look at this is stress is usually the body's reaction to an external situation. External event, that's a better word. So when someone else does something to us, or we get a new deadline put on us, or we have a big meeting we're going into and we have to do a good job with it, like something else is happening to us and our body reacts to it. Anxiety is the opposite. It's an internal event. So it's the response to an internal event, sometimes and usually something that hasn't happened yet, but something we're thinking might happen. So stress is usually a response to what has happened. Anxiety is what we think is going to happen. And 9 times out of 10, what we think is going to happen does not happen. There's that 1 out of 10 that keeps us on our toes, but we want to try to eliminate those as much as possible. Or feeling anxious, that will help your body. So again, when you're stressed or anxious, your body is going into this fight or flight mode. And a lot of times what happens, you might notice when you start feeling anxious, you kind of hunch down. You know, you get like in this, almost in this like protection mode of the body. That's a natural reaction. So what you want to do is straighten up, pull your shoulders back, head up, and just sit like this for a few minutes. And what you're doing is you're training your body to say, we are not under attack, we are fine. And it's going to decrease your anxiety level. Another trick is to take 6 deep breaths. You don't have to do anything crazy, just consciously taking 6 deep breaths in and out. It can take about 30 seconds, and it can decrease your anxiety by about 25%. So it's substantial, and it takes 30 seconds. Power shower. Anyone do the power shower? Aubrey Marcus talks about the power shower from On It. So power shower is something I started doing a few, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago maybe. Jackie, I don't know. You don't know, you're not in there with me. And the power shower, it's cool. It's basically, it takes like 3 to 4 minutes, but what you do is you take your shower per normal, but then toward the end, you do this cycle of taking deep breaths in through your stomach, so in through your diaphragm, and holding just a little bit at the top, and then releasing. And you do that. You just keep doing that. Usually it takes about 30 to 50 times, and you're going to start feeling just a little bit of lightheadedness or a little bit of tingles. You don't want to push it past that because you don't want to pass out in the shower. But like kind of hitting that point where your body is fully oxidated. And then what you want to do is crank the water all the way cold. So now you're sending your body into this state of, it's almost forcing yourself into a state of stress, but like a real one, like something's happening to you. And so it just causes your body to release all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of biological benefits to doing this. But then after you let you're going to start hyperventilating, right? Like when you get cold water, when your breath finally calms down to your normal breathing pattern, then you want to take 1 big deep breath in and then hold your breath as long as you can. Or I'm sorry, deep breath in and let it out and hold it as long as you can at the bottom. And what's weird, if you've ever tried to do like deep breathing before you hold your breath, like if you try to do it without, like usually we hold our breath like this, right? We go. But for this, we're going to go and hold it like that. And you're going to hold it like twice as long as you think you can, because your body is fully oxidated from all the deep breaths you just took for 30 to 50 breaths. And you're going to hold it down there at the very bottom until you get that gasp reflex. So again, bless you, we don't want to pass out in the shower, but you want to get to the point where you need, like where you actually need to breathe, and then breathe. And it releases adrenaline in your body, which gives you a kick in the morning. So this is like a 5-minute thing to decrease anxiety. So again, with the breaths, you're going to decrease your anxiety by about 25%. And then with the holding your breath, you're going to release adrenaline, which is going to get you moving in the morning. So it's like a 5-minute routine. You can just do it at the end of your shower. It makes your day a lot better, less anxious, and more energized. practice mindfulness. So this is something if you're feeling stressed or anxious, it's funny, like usually the times we need to be more still are the times we feel like we can't be. Because there's so much going on and we feel like we need to be doing something to make everything better. But when you're in that state is when we also need it the most. So just taking 5 to 10 minutes to sit still, focus on your breath, and like meditation doesn't have to be woo-woo, it doesn't have to be anything particular, it's just letting your brain relax. So sit, try to focus on your breath, don't judge yourself too much if you start thinking about stuff, and just focus on the breathing for 5 to 10 minutes, and then go about your day. It's going to make it a lot better. There are apps to do this. The ones that I like to use, there's one called Calm, that's really good. There's one called Headspace, that's good. Does anyone else have any other ones they use? Chase, do you have any other good ones you use?
I like Muse.
Muse.
They work well. They actually it's a headband you wear.
Oh, yeah.
It's to the app.
Yeah.
So you can actually kind of look boring. You can actually track and see when you're actually in a meditative state. You look at brainwaves. Muse, Calm, Headspace, all of it.
Cool. Yeah, Muse. I've seen those headsets before. That's cool. So mindfulness is good. E plus R equals O. This is a formula that I learned. I had a guest on a podcast one time. His name is Brian Kite. And Brian Kite he's a high performance coach. And one of the things he talks about is the way that we choose to react to the things that are happening to us, which is usually what causes our stress and anxiety is when we're reacting poorly to what's happening. And a lot of times our anxiety comes from us trying to control things we can't control, instead of being able to go with the flow a little bit and influence what we can, but be willing to let go of what we can't. And so E plus R equals O stands for event plus reaction equals outcome. Event plus reaction equals outcome. And so really how the formula actually works is if when something happens, so an event happens to us, like let's say you miss your flight and you're trying to figure out what to do now. It's kind of a panicky situation if you're in a hurry. So normally what we do is we don't think about it and we just let our bodies react. And then we get in bad situations or things where we feel stressed or anxious. So what we want to do is kind of skip over that R and go straight to the O. So we have an event, we need to immediately think, what's the outcome that I would like to happen? Or what is the best outcome I think can happen for the situation? And then we think about, now how do I react to it to get that outcome to happen? How do I influence the event with my reaction to get the outcome the best that it can be? So maybe you miss your flight, but then maybe there's another one you can book. And so maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe we go through all these things in our heads of being mad or being worried, when really all we need to go is walk up to the desk and say, hi, do you have another flight flying there today? And they'll say yes, and problem solved. So we can spare ourselves a lot of stress and anxiety by thinking of the outcome we want and then choosing how to react to it instead of just naturally reacting in a negative way. So it's a good formula just to kind of keep on hand. 20 minutes of daily exercise for anxiety and stress can make a big difference. Just getting your body moving, because when our bodies are under stress, again, it's putting us in fight or flight. It wants us to move. So a good time to go work out is when you're really stressed, because we can actually use what the body's trying to do inside of us and get it out, as opposed to being stressed and sitting still. So just doing 20 minutes of daily exercise, it doesn't have to be super strenuous. Just do something, and it'll really help if you're kind of chronically stressed or anxious. And then food quality. This is something a lot of people don't think about, how much our stress levels are impacted by the quality of food we eat. Because a lot of times, like with our digestive system, there's over 100 million neurons in the gut. So like the advice, follow your gut, is actually really good advice. It impacts how the brain works. So when we're eating things that have antibiotics in them, we're eating things that have preservatives in them, it's messing with our gut microbiome, and it's making our brains actually work differently than they would. And so a lot of that is held with stress and anxiety. So paying attention to food quality, keeping antibiotics out of your meat, keeping preservatives out of your food, eating as clean as you can, does impact your brain and how stressed and anxious you are. Okay, so here's a couple of things. These are kind of some vitamins, herbs to look for to help with stress and anxiety. So the first one is L-theanine, and this is I like to call it a super amino. It's if you just take one thing, if that's all you're going to take L-theanine because it's going to do most of what you need it to do. It's found usually in tea leaves, so like green tea has it, and it has this kind of calm but focused effect that happens. I'm not going to give you a milligram amount to take, just do some research because everybody's different, but generally speaking, 100 to 200 milligrams is good, but research that on your own. And so it's cool though because typically like when we're stressed or anxious and we want to calm down, a lot of the things we do can make us feel drowsy. But sometimes we don't want to be sleepy, we just want to not be stressed. We want to remain focused. So that's where theanine's really cool. And so when people drink green tea, for example, that's why you kind of feel this sense of calm, but then there's that little bit of caffeine that's in green tea that makes you feel energized at the same time. So it's a cool thing if you're not overly anxious, if you're just a little bit anxious but you gotta get stuff done, have something like green tea, because it'll give you a little bit of caffeine kick but without going overboard, and the theanine in there will calm your brain down, put you in a calm mental state. Citicoline, so citicoline CDP in particular, CDP. It's a brain nutrient, and so it supports a lot of things like mainly mental energy is the one that it supports, and it's mental energy, mental stamina. And so there's a statistic here: only 8% of adults get as much as they need each day in the brain. So it's an important one. It's something we're usually insufficient in. So if you can find a good supplement for that, citicoline CDP is really good, and it helps to just keep focus, keep mental energy, and it has a restorative effect, especially if you have any kind of brain damage, even like a little bit. Most of us have a little bit of brain damage from one thing or another. It helps to restore the brain, so it has cognitive benefits beyond just how it makes you feel. Rhodiola, it's a root of an herb, and it's also found, like you can find it in a lot of teas and stuff, but it helps a little bit with mental fatigue, but the main thing it helps with is dopamine and serotonin levels. So again, when we're stressed or we're anxious, we can fall in a depressed state pretty quickly. And usually that's our brains not getting enough of serotonin or dopamine, and those are kind of our happy drugs. You want to be careful with things like this, though. Just kind of a warning. It can cause, if you're like clinically anxious or you're on some kind of medication for that, if you're on SSRIs or something like that, it can. And that's basically like if you're on like a prescribed medication. Be careful with taking anything that boosts your serotonin and dopamine, because it can cause some issues like serotonin syndrome and stuff like that if you're not careful. So just a warning on that. But if you're not on any kind of medication like that, then you're good to go with, I'd start with about 100 milligrams of this and work your way up, because it can make you a little bit nauseous if you're not used to it. But it's really good with it helps your body. It's an adaptogen, so it's one of the main ways to get stress out of your body, to help your body to adapt to stress. There's also a lot of good mushrooms that help with that, so you can look into mushrooms too. Magnesium citrate. So magnesium is something most people are deficient in as well, and it affects our sleep in a few different ways. The main way, though, is if we don't have enough magnesium, our bodies are tense. So magnesium helps the body to relax. And so a lot of people take it at nighttime. You actually don't need to take it at nighttime. Magnesium is not, it has nothing in it that makes you sleepy at all. The only thing is it makes your body relaxed. So if you're not taking, like, you'll see supplements that are like magnesium and melatonin. And the reason they're together is because your body relaxes and you get melatonin release to fall asleep. But you're not gonna, if you take it right now, you're gonna feel fine if you took it by itself. It's just kind of a disclaimer, a positive disclaimer. But magnesium citrate, be careful with the type of magnesium you take, because it can run through you, to be delicate. Magnesium citrate is the highest quality magnesium you can get, so look for that when you're looking for what type of magnesium you can get. But it's going to help your overall mood. It's going to help your body relax a little bit from being in that tense, stress state. So look for that. And then when you're taking magnesium, it's a good idea to take a B6 supplement, because B6 helps the body actually use the magnesium properly. That's one of its functions. So again, magnesium really easily flows right through you. So B6 is going to help you actually absorb and use it properly. And it has a kind of a nice mood booster as well, if you ever had B6. So whether you use a deep breath or you use a different supplement, just look into something to help give yourself an edge through the day. I think a lot of times with supplements, we feel like we're cheating, but we don't need to feel that way. It's a way, we have a lot of things happening in our lives that aren't natural to what we're supposed to be experiencing, how we're really created to be experiencing, and supplements are just a good way to get us restored back to the levels that we were intended to be at. So that's it for the high performance workshop, and that's it for the event.